I am a Mohawk woman and Scandinavian, and I chose to chain myself to the fence at Westover. It was an Enbridge pipeline, and I was arrested. When the police came, they cut the chain off of me with these big giant shear things. And they were trying to help me down, and I just broke away from them and jumped down because I was on a high platform of wood. And I think they thought I couldn't jump down because of my age, but I just did that in defiance. And the other thing that really spoke to me was I was told to put my status card here, just in my bra there. And instead of the female officer just taking it out, she went right down and took it out at the end, and I was handcuffed at the time right on the ledge of the paddy wagon. And they do film all of this. Yeah.
In October 2011, my dad was in the kitchen waiting for my brother to come for dinner, and he was doing the dishes when he heard a knock on the door, and went to open the door to find a gun put towards his head, and behind the gun there was a police officer. The police officer had several others with him. They handcuffed my father and my other brother, who was in the apartment, dragged them out of the apartment, and then asked them several questions, where at that point my brother started to shout at the police, because this was not the first incident it had, this was the fourth. And since April of that year, the police had routinely entered our apartment and harassed us without giving any real justification. My father told him that he has a 5-year-old son, and who was not there at the moment, but if he had witnessed that, he would have been traumatized. To which the police officer said, "Well, I also have a son, and I would want my son to live in a safe city." We did not press any charges because we were told that we would not have any chance against the Toronto police.
What's the face of discrimination? Police. Some are good, some are bad. How do we reconcile the two?
My cousin and his girlfriend once got into this huge fight, and she had trouble with the law before. So it got so bad that my cousin decided to call the cops, and she was really scared of that. So finally, they decided they would just say something else, but the cops were already on their way. So by the time the cops arrived, my cousin had come up with a story to not get his girlfriend in trouble. The cops knocked at the door. They started asking what happened, and my cousin simply said someone had broken into the house. The police officer didn't seem too convinced, but immediately my cousin said, well, he'd seen a black kid coming into the house through the window. As soon as he said this, the police officer took the story really seriously and decided to go inspect. So they went to the backyard. He saw some footprints from the day before, and he immediately concluded they were the footprints from the kid who'd broken into the house, and explained there was a social housing project nearby, so they would be on the lookout for any suspicious person.
So, at my father's house, we used to throw really, really large parties. And at one of them, my sister's boyfriend was knocked out. And we don't know who it was, but she came into a room and found him unconscious. And so naturally, she phoned the police. Now, because of the reputation of there being large parties at this house and the police showing up a lot, really unexpectedly, van with a SWAT team showed up in riot gear, some kind of minor form of riot gear. And my dad came outside to say, hey, you know, this is our place. And there was a glass window behind him, and they pushed him through the glass window. And my brother, who's a very large 6'4" young man, was there, and he's very, very calm, was trying to get help, but they were pushing him back and forth between each other, trying to get a reaction. And it felt like because they were there, they were looking for an arrest of some kind. And he eventually got actually punched in the face and had black eyes and a small gash on his forehead. So that was an experience of police brutality through my family that was really unexpected and showed up in a place where I didn't think it really would.
It was 2005, and my family and I had just pulled up to one of the many checkpoints in Sri Lanka. A Sinhalese army officer approached our vehicle. And then he started making kissing noises at me. It was disgusting what he was doing, and I wanted to knock him out. But I didn't want to be dragged away and raped.
Many years ago, when I was quite a bit younger, I was at a party with some friends, and we decided to go to a friend's cottage on the Quebec side. We were living in Ottawa at the time. He had a broken tail light, and so the other couple followed behind in their vehicle so we wouldn't get stopped by the police. As we were driving along, it was a rural, lonely road, and an unmarked car did stop us, and he waved angrily the other people away because we had both pulled off. And we were a little bit worried because it was an unmarked car, and when we saw him approach, he had a gun. So we were a bit unnerved by that, but it turned out that he was a police officer, and he had only pulled us over for a missing taillight. So for him to draw his gun on us, I thought was quite scary, actually. And it was on the Quebec side, and at that time, in those days, the QPP actually had quite a notorious reputation. So it was kind of a scary experience.
I was sitting in the park with my boyfriend when a police patrol passed by and the siren went off, but we didn't pick up the signal because there was nothing wrong. Up until a few minutes later, when police car stopped, 2 policemen came out, pointed guns at us, put us against the wall, searched us. It was all very invasive, but we didn't want to say that we were there as a couple because we were too scared to get beat up.